Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and stay tuned by clicking the bell icon. Coronation Street's George Shuttleworth makes a risky choice after Stephen Reid's death. George Shuttleworth has made a risky choice after Stephen Reid's death in Coronation Street. The Undertaker was faced with a difficult request in Monday's, October 23, episode when Audrey Roberts and Gail Platt asked him to perform Stephen's funeral at Shuttleworth's. Serial killer Stephen was killed off earlier this month when he was run down by Peter Barlow's car as he was attempting to flee the country. Just before his death, Stephen had turned the entire community against him when it was revealed that he'd scammed his mother Audrey out of her equity and taken his girlfriend Jenny Connor hostage, on top of his murders being exposed. George anticipated the potential backlash he could face if he agreed to take on Stephen's funeral, so he tried to gently decline at first. "I feel for you, Audrey, I really do, but knowing the people that he hurt and living on the same street, it doesn't feel right," George told her. Audrey pointed out that she remembered George's own father Archie once organizing a funeral for one of the most notorious killers in the history of Weatherfield, Richard Hillman. "No, I'm sorry, Audrey, I've made me mind up," George insisted. At Roy's Rolls later on, George faced pressure from Tim Metcalfe and Steve McDonald to turn down the Platts' request to organize Stephen's funeral. When George insisted he'd already done so, Tim shot back, "Good, glad to hear it. I thought I'd have to blacklist you." Tim warned George that if he went back on his word, there would be picket lines around the block and he'd have to shut his funeral parlor for good. Still, George was left battling with his conscience when Audrey approached him again to point out that Archie would have helped her out in a shot. Later, George had second thoughts and confided in Todd that he was going to perform the funeral after all. He explained to a skeptical Todd that everyone deserves a send-off, no matter who they are. Todd made it clear he couldn't assist in the funeral planning for a killer, so George was left all on his own to take the heat. George visited the Platts alone to convince Audrey that cremation was a better option than burial, as a gravestone for a killer would likely be asking for a trouble. He also promised to keep everything very quiet on his end. Elsewhere in Monday's episode, Tim Metcalfe was still haunted by his final encounter with Stephen, where he was attacked and left to die in the boot of his own taxi. Tim was suffering flashbacks to that horrible few days through Monday's episode, especially when helping his mom Elaine load her bags in the car boot, leading to him running away in a panic. Steve found him nearby, and after some pleading, he agreed to let Tim come back to work. Sally soon found them, leading Tim to make up an excuse that Steve had brought him some chips. In actuality, Steve had bought his own lunch and was startled when Tim suddenly snatched them away. Will Tim share what he's going through with the ones he loves? If you like the video, don't forget to like, comment and share.